Today's topic: what should be your emergency fund number, with a free workflow that we will walk through together at the end of this video. But is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Is it 9 months? Is it 12 months? Is it income? Is it expenses? Well, there's a lot of ways to get to it. We're going to walk through all that together. But welcome back. My name is Chad Chubb. I'm the founder of Wealthkeel. For those of you that are new here, I am a CFP, a CSLP, and a TPCP. Yes, I love this stuff. And if you get any enjoyment out of this video, you learn anything in this video, please give us a thumbs up. It helps the small channels like ours continue to grow and spread our message. If you also scroll down to the Wealthkeel Go link, you can submit questions for future videos. You can join our Wealthkeel weekly newsletter, and you can also sign up for a free icebreaker call. That's right. If you or your spouse is a physician and you're looking for a world-class financial planning team, we'd love to have a chance to speak with you. But that's it. That's the pitch. Let's get into the goods. First up, March is Financial Literacy Month. An awesome month. I love March for a lot of reasons, but March in particular is Financial Literacy Month. So I figured I would take it back to one of the most commonly asked questions in terms of financial literacy. What should be in your emergency fund? So here's our goal today. We're going to walk through the expense model of how to think about your number. I'm also going to use one that we use at Wealthkeel. We call it the income model. That's right. Change it up a little bit. I'm going to talk about some things to keep in mind in terms of how you're going to save, how you're going to keep that money in there. And then at the end of this video, I will pull up, I'll minimize my face. We'll walk through the workflow together. As always, I won't walk through every point. I want you to make that your own, but it's a really nice checklist. It's also in the show notes below. You can click on that PDF. It's yours. Utilize it. And you can customize this. But let's talk through the nuts and bolts first before we walk through the big workflow. So first up, when you Google search this, one of the most common questions we get is, what should be my number, right? And it varies. You'll see 3 months, 6 months, 3 to 6 months is probably the most common. But I'll even say, depending on what your setup is, 6 months, 12 months, even 24 months could be very common. So if you're sitting there, I pulled up some other notes here too. If you're sitting there and the more stable your situation, maybe it's a dual income household, maybe it's a very secure job, maybe you're tenured, maybe it's a government role, whatever the example would be. The more stable your role, the stable your income, you can likely be on the lower side. Now, remember, this is your Finance 101 answer. Your answer can be completely separate. And what I'll usually ask our clients is, what's your sleep number? What's your rainy day number? What's the number that you have to sign into your online bank, see the number and go, whew, if things go horribly wrong, I feel pretty good here. Textbook answer is 1, but your number is the most important number. But this will at least give you some guidance on how to maybe craft that number. So 3 months could make more sense there. If you're maybe one income, right? Maybe you have a stay-at-home spouse. Maybe your job is not as stable. You're a little bit iffy on some things. Maybe this is 6 months. We could easily get over 6 months if you don't have stable income. I'm thinking more like my business owners, our partners, right? Our partners in terms of our medical practices, where maybe they do have a pretty fair salary, but they get a large year-end bonus. They have uneven cash flows throughout the year. This number can be anywhere from 6 months to 12 months. We have some clients that want to keep a multiple of that because that's what they feel good with. Now, from our side of it, we'll review the total plan. And long as that large cash position is not holding them back, but they feel good with it, we're ready to rock and roll. We like that. So what could some of this look like? Well, you use your number. That's fine. You can use whatever number you want here. But let's just say that your number is $5,000 per month. Your expenses are $5,000 a month. If you don't like $5,000 a month, it's $10,000 per month, increase it. If you use $20,000 a month, go ahead, plug that in. But just stick with me for some basic math here. Math on videos is never fun. I thought about doing an Excel spreadsheet, but I don't think this warranted it. 3 months, the 3-month rule, $5,000. You can do the math, right? About $15,000 emergency fund. Get up to 6, we're talking about $30,000. Up to 12, talking about $60,000. Now, you can get as high as 24 months, right? You could actually, have $100,000 plus in your emergency fund, depending on what metric number you want to use here. The key number is you do have an emergency fund. And if you're watching this video and you're thinking, holy smokes, who the heck has $15,000? Start somewhere. Start somewhere. This is a judgment-free zone. As I tell all my medical residents and fellows when we're doing these same types of presentations, start with $100, start with $1,000, and then automate building that. Carve out a certain portion of your paycheck to put into that fund where you don't even think about it, and you start to build this thing up. You'll get there. You will get there. So with these, you're working towards one of these numbers. Now, I can tell you, we work with high-income households day in and day out. $50,000 is a very common number. They like that number. It's a round number. A lot of clients will say $100,000. They like $100,000. There's also a level to this. Actually, oddly enough, we call it level 1 and level 2. We call it their level 1 emergency fund and then their level 2 emergency fund. The level 2 emergency fund is pretty much saying, hey, we don't want to have too much money in cash, so we're going to actually carve out some of this and put this in some type of brokerage account. Now, that brokerage account will likely have a pretty conservative allocation. Maybe it's 60% bonds, only 40% stocks. Maybe it's even more conservative than that. But it is a tool to say, hey, we don't want too much just sitting in cash, especially if the long-term plan still needs a little bit of support. But why don't we carve out, that 50 or 100 in level 1, park that in your high yield savings at Ally or Capital One, Marcus, wherever. But then on that second part, let's get this into a brokerage account. We're going to keep it a little bit more conservative, but we will have some stocks in there, but not 100% stocks. Like I said, maybe it's a 60-40, maybe it's a 70-30, maybe it's an 80-20. Depends on a few variables. That one gets a little bit more personal on what the client's risk tolerance is. So some things to keep in mind there. Now, one pivot I would actually put in here is that we also, Wealthkeel in particular, we actually like to use an income model. What we consider this as your net income model. So after Uncle Samson paid, what's your net income number? Now, again, we work with physicians. Whether that's a dual physician household, whether that's an individual physician household, whether that's someone, a physician, someone in tech, someone in pharma, whatever the case would be. But the numbers are larger. So let's just say that you have, whether this is an individual or a household that has a $20,000 per month net income number. So their gross income number after they paid Uncle Sam, they're putting, let's just say $20,000 hits their bank account, just to keep things simple. Use those same numbers though. We use the same numbers. And my thinking has always been this. Our clients are younger. Now, when I say younger, I consider anything from 35 to 55. If you're older than 55, you're still young. I consider that younger, meaning that we're still in the accumulation years where you likely still have kids at home, whether they're young kids or teenagers. There's still a lot of things happening. There's a lot of life that can occur outside of the lines. So that's why we've always been a little bit larger fans of income, not expenses. I also feel like it's an easier number to utilize because when your income gets much higher, you also don't track your expenses that closely. So we've always liked that net income number. So stick with me again. $20,000 per month net income. Well, let's do 3, right? We got 60. If it's 6 months, 120. 9, 180, $180,000. A whole year at 20,000 is $240,000. Now, remember what I said earlier. You're going to hit a point, whether that's 50,000 or 100,000, where it likely doesn't make sense just to have everything tucked away in a high yield savings. That is where you should look to maybe sprinkle some of this into a brokerage account, but keep in a lower risk tolerance. Just keep that in mind. That is an important one here. And one of the other things, if you're one of the few states that offer tenants by the entirety, also kind of nice because if you have a joint account with your spouse, you also get a little bit better asset protection. Remember, a lot of banks do not. We actually have not seen a true bank that offers a tenants by the entirety bank account. So kind of a neat little trick there mixed in. Now, before I switch over to the workflow, outside of the brokerage account, let's just call this your true level 1 emergency fund. You should only be really in 2 spots here. You should be in a high yield savings account, and a high yield savings account is likely at an online bank. Most brick and mortar banks, even the best banks in the world, are offering very low yields, even on their high yield savings. I'm not going to put a number in here because it'll probably age the video, but you're looking for a number that's usually much higher than what your local bank with the brick and mortar locations offering. Common banks that we see today, Ally Bank, Marcus, Capital One, all very popular banks. Laurel Road as well in the physician space we see quite a bit are offering good high yield rates at the time of this recording. One that we also see, if you do like the idea of keeping the funds inside of a brokerage account, you might see more money market funds here. If you are a high income professional, you're in the higher tax brackets, I would also venture you to look at something called municipal money markets. Why do we like muni money markets? Because they're exempt from federal taxes. Now, municipal money markets certainly have more risk than just the high yield savings. And they also have more risk than just your US Treasury based funds because those are backed by the US government, where municipal money markets are local municipalities. So now, I'm not saying that these are like small cap stocks, but they certainly do have some more risk than the two that I noted before. But for your 50, 100,000 type level one emergency fund and any number lower than that as well, high yield savings, either a money market, treasury yield, or treasuries, kind of keep an eye on the yields, and then municipal money markets for those of you in the high income household. Remember, municipal bonds, municipal money markets exempt from federal taxes. All right, so those are the three main topics. Now, I'm going to share my screen here. These workflows, this is one of the most requested things we had in our feedback that we sent out to you all at the end of last year. So we're going to keep building around these. Here we go. Let me just do, okay. I will not walk through all of these, but I will walk through a few of them. You have full access to this. Save it, print it, make it yours. We'll have it in the show notes below as well. But these are things that you should consider when establishing your emergency fund. And again, these are conversations we have every day with our clients, but you have it now in front of you and you're not a client of ours, so you can take this and you can run with it. So things to keep in mind. Monthly expenses. So if we go back to our first topic, right? The first thing is most literature will tell you to use expenses. Again, we're a little bit more aggressive. We like the income. But that's going to be part one. You got to know what your expenses are, right? Before you do this. How many months worth of expenses? We just talked about that, right? Is it a 3 month? Is it a 6 months? Is it 9? Is it 12? So keep that in mind. This one's also really important. Any large life events, marriage, children, spouse returning to work, new sources of income, but keep an eye on that as well. That certainly affects your number. Do you own or plan to own a rental property? Are you a business owner? These types of things where you are not just this basic W-2 employee where you get your paycheck, it's locked in and secure. Anything that adds some variability or risk, it's going to change those numbers. And that's what they're noting here in our workflow. So those are general. Unexpected issues. Wear and tear of property, so vehicles, household appliances, right? As soon as you're feeling good, washer and dryer goes out, dishwasher goes out. We've all been there. But this is emergency fund 101. This is the whole reason why we have emergency funds, is stuff like that. Ideally, it's nothing worse than that, but that's like emergency fund 101. Unexpected health issues, not even unexpected, expected, right? You know that you are going to have you got to get your knee cleaned up, and you know that your deductible is $7,000 or your max out of pocket is $10,000. Carve that out. You know you're going to get the surgery. You have it scheduled for June, right? You know you got to get it cleaned up. That is one that you can already stash that away. Add that in addition to these other numbers as well. This kind of right on cue here. Elimination periods. When you sign up for your disability insurance, you have, usually you'll see like a 90-day elimination period. We actually like a 180-day elimination period, especially for physicians that are more established. But these are the types of things you got to keep in mind. What does your short-term disability look like? What does long-term disability? Hopefully you never have to worry about this. But if you do, your emergency fund should be including these types of things. How quickly is it to replenish your emergency fund? Also a really important topic. If you go and burn through your emergency fund for something that was needed, how quickly can you build that back up? They even note in here like HELOCs. We don't love this idea. But if you are in a tight spot and you have good equity in your home, a backup, this should truly be a backup emergency fund. You can even look to get a home equity line of credit that kind of sits behind everything. It gives you a lifeline per se. Hopefully you don't need that. But especially while you're building up your emergency fund, or if you're just getting started, and we talked about some of those smaller numbers, but you do have a home with good equity, you can set up a HELOC. Again, don't use that as your main source, but it will give you a backup plan in case it takes longer to build up that emergency fund. So just some neat things to keep in mind. All right, page 2, fund locations. Is it underfunded? Keep an eye on this. I would say, remember, I chuckle about this. Sometimes clients will say, hey, emergency fund's still $50,000, but I put $10,000 on the credit card because I didn't want to touch the emergency fund. That defeats the purpose of the emergency fund. It's okay to use the emergency fund. We just got to build back that 10,000. So is it underfunded? Rebuild that. We talked about kind of some places to hold it at, so I won't go into that. We don't see these all that often, but it is something to keep an eye on. Does your employer offer emergency service account or savings account? Keep an eye on that. You don't see it all that often. Even some states have unique rules. Florida, for example, has like a hurricane savings account that has its own benefits to it. So there's kind of some unique things in there. Not in terms of like interest, but it's an account that's actually safe from creditors that essentially is for hurricanes. So every state can have their own rules as well. Bank account, brokerage account, talk through some of that. HSA, again, I would not think of the HSA as an emergency fund, but if there are medical expenses, remember you do got a little bit of a backup plan there. Roth IRAs, again, I don't love the idea of touching a Roth IRA or any retirement account besides needing it for retirement. But yes, a Roth IRA, if you made direct contributions, backdoor Roth would not qualify here. You'd add a 5-year rule. But after that 5-year rule, it would come into play here. But just keep that in mind. Roths do have a little bit of flexibility to them. Permanent life insurance, hopefully you don't have that, right? But if you do have that, cash value can be utilized. And then do you have any safe assets that are currently illiquid, but will gain liquidity in the future? I-bonds, CDs. I even think of people that put precious metals and things of that in the safe. Some things to keep in mind. Goals, goal coordination issues is one of your financial goals to pay down debts, is one of your financial goals to make Roth conversions. And would any of your savings goals be impacted should your current emergency fund be exhausted? Again, important things. If you're working with a financial advisor, this is kind of part of the holistic, the comprehensive financial planning is making sure all these things work together. But if you're watching this video and you're trying to piece this all together, these are really important things to keep in mind. It's not just this one silo, right? It touches a little bit of everything. And that should be the end. I think it's a 2-pager, right? Yeah, 2-pager. So that's all we got there. Back to me. Link is in the show notes below. Make this your own, as I said before. That's all I got for you. So as always, thanks for hanging out with me a little bit over 15 minutes or so. Again, if you have not subscribed to the channel, if you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell icon, get a notification every time we release a new video like we do weekly. Again, Wealthkeel Go link gives you a chance to send us questions, join the Wealthkeel weekly newsletter, sign up for an icebreaker call. Again, thank you so much. And as always, I will catch you on the next video.